When Amanda Rodriguez chose to save a dying child without insurance approval, she never imagined it would cost her everything. Fired on the spot for breaking hospital protocol, she returned to her small apartment, devastated and broke. But exactly 3 hours later, the sound of expensive engines filled the quiet mountain air. 8 luxury vehicles lined her modest street like a presidential motorcade. What happened next would change her life forever, proving that sometimes the most costly decisions become the most rewarding ones. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights of Riverside General Medical Center buzzed with their familiar electrical hum, casting their harsh white glow across the pediatric emergency department. Outside, the Colorado winter painted the small mountain town in shades of silver and white, with snowflakes dancing against the windows like nature's own confetti. It was the kind of evening that made people grateful for warm homes and steady jobs, but for Amanda Rodriguez, gratitude felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Amanda adjusted her navy blue scrubs and glanced at the clock mounted above the nurse's station. 7:43 in the evening. Her double shift was nearing its end, but exhaustion had become such a constant companion that she barely noticed it anymore. At 32, she had learned to push through fatigue the way other people pushed through traffic, with practiced determination and the knowledge that stopping wasn't an option. The pediatric ward had been unusually quiet that Tuesday evening. Most of the young patients were tucked into their beds, some sleeping peacefully, while others whispered softly with visiting family members. Amanda cherished these moments of calm, knowing how quickly they could shatter in a place where childhood innocence met medical reality. She had been working at Riverside General for nearly 4 years, and in that time she had seen miracles and heartbreak in equal measure. Her colleagues often wondered how she managed to maintain such unwavering compassion in a system that seemed to test it at every turn. The truth was that Amanda had no choice but to care deeply. Every child who passed through these doors reminded her of her own daughter, 8-year-old Sophia, who was probably finishing her homework at that very moment in their small apartment across town. Sophia stayed with Mrs. Patterson, their elderly neighbor, during Amanda's long shifts, an arrangement that worked out of necessity rather than preference. Amanda's journey to nursing hadn't been traditional. She had discovered her calling later than most, after Sophia was born and her ex-husband disappeared, leaving behind nothing but unpaid bills and empty promises. Nursing school had been a mountain to climb while juggling single motherhood, but Amanda had approached it with the same fierce determination that now characterized her approach to patient care. She believed that healing was about more than medical procedures. It was about treating each person with dignity, regardless of their circumstances. Riverside General had its own set of challenges that seemed to grow more complex each year. The hospital served a wide geographic area, drawing patients from small towns scattered throughout the Colorado mountains. Many of these families struggled financially, caught between the high cost of living in a tourist-dependent economy and wages that hadn't kept pace with inflation. The hospital administration, led by Dr. Patricia Kane, had implemented increasingly strict policies designed to protect the facility's financial stability. Dr. Kane was a woman who commanded respect through her clinical expertise and business acumen, but her approach to healthcare management often put her at odds with staff members like Amanda. Kane believed that financial responsibility was essential for the hospital's survival, and she had little patience for what she called emotional decision-making that could jeopardize the institution's ability to serve the community long-term. Her policies were clear and non-negotiable. All non-emergency procedures required insurance, pre-authorization, payment plans had to be established before treatment, and staff members were expected to follow protocols without exception. Amanda understood the reasoning behind these policies, even if she didn't always agree with them. Healthcare was expensive, and small hospitals like Riverside General operated on thin margins. But she had also seen how these same policies could create barriers for families who needed help the most. Children didn't choose their parents' insurance coverage, and medical emergencies didn't wait for paperwork to be processed. The nursing staff had learned to navigate these competing demands with varying degrees of success. Linda Walsh, the evening receptionist, had perfected the art of gentle enforcement, explaining policies with empathy while maintaining firm boundaries. Carol Peters, Amanda's closest friend on the staff, often joked that they should have majored in social work instead of nursing, given how much time they spent helping families navigate insurance complications. Amanda's personal philosophy had been shaped by her own experiences with the healthcare system. When Sophia was 3, she had developed a severe respiratory infection that required emergency treatment. Amanda's insurance at the time had limited coverage, and the bills had taken months to pay off. She remembered the stress of choosing between her daughter's health and financial stability, and she had promised herself that she would never let another parent feel that kind of helplessness, if she had the power to prevent it. The pediatric emergency department reflected this philosophy in subtle ways. Amanda had arranged the waiting area to be as child-friendly as possible, with colorful books and quiet toys that helped distract young patients from their fears. She had learned that small gestures often made the biggest difference in how families experienced their time at the hospital. A warm blanket, a patient explanation, or simply sitting with a frightened child could transform a traumatic experience into something more manageable. Her approach to patient care extended beyond the medical aspects of treatment. Amanda believed that healing happened when people felt heard and valued, regardless of their ability to pay. She had seen children recover faster when their families felt supported, and she had witnessed the opposite when bureaucratic barriers created additional stress during already difficult times. This holistic approach had earned her recognition from both colleagues and patients, but it had also occasionally put her at odds with administrative policies. The tension between compassionate care and institutional requirements was something Amanda navigated daily. She had learned to work within the system while advocating for her patients, finding creative solutions that honored both medical needs and administrative expectations. Most of the time, this balancing act worked well. Enough, but Amanda knew that eventually she might face a situation where these competing demands couldn't be reconciled. As the evening shift continued, Amanda found herself thinking about Sophia's upcoming birthday. Her daughter had been asking for a bicycle, something Amanda had been saving for despite the tight budget that governed every aspect of their lives. Working double shifts helped supplement her income, but it also meant less time with Sophia, a trade-off that never felt entirely comfortable. Amanda often wondered if she was doing enough as a mother, if the long hours and constant stress were worth the financial stability her job provided. The other nurses respected Amanda's dedication, but they also worried about her tendency to take on extra responsibilities. Carol had repeatedly urged her to set better boundaries, to protect herself from the emotional toll of caring too deeply in a system that didn't always reward compassion. Amanda appreciated the concern, but she couldn't imagine approaching her work any differently. For her, nursing wasn't just a job. It was a calling that required her to show up fully for every patient, regardless of the personal cost. Riverside General's evening routine had its own rhythm, one that Amanda had learned to read like a familiar song. The dinner trays had been collected, evening medications had been distributed, and the hallways had settled into the quiet hum of overnight operations. Amanda was reviewing patient charts when she heard the automatic doors of the emergency entrance whoosh open with unusual urgency. The sound was followed by frantic voices and hurried footsteps, the kind of commotion that immediately commanded attention from anyone within earshot. Amanda looked up from her paperwork, her nursing instincts already sharpening her focus. After 4 years in pediatric emergency care, she had developed an ability to distinguish between routine arrivals and genuine crises based on nothing more than the sound of voices in the hallway. What she heard next would test every principle she had developed during her nursing career, forcing her to choose between the job security she desperately needed and the moral code that defined who she was as both a healthcare provider and a human being. The decision she was about to make would cost her everything she thought she valued, but it would also reveal the true measure of her character and set in motion a chain of events that would transform not just her own life, but the lives of countless others. The stage was set for a moment that would define Amanda Rodriguez's future, though she had no way of knowing it, as she stood up from her desk and walked toward the sound of crisis approaching her door. The emergency entrance doors burst open with a force that sent a cold wind racing through the corridors of Riverside General. A man stumbled through the threshold carrying a small boy whose lips had turned an alarming shade of blue. The child's face was swollen beyond recognition, his breathing coming in desperate, wheezing gasps that echoed off the sterile walls like a plea for salvation. "Help us, please!" The man's voice cracked with terror as he clutched the boy against his chest. "Tyler can't breathe. Something's wrong with his breathing." Amanda's heart immediately shifted into emergency mode as she rushed toward them. The child in the man's arms couldn't have been more than 6 years old, and every medical instinct she possessed screamed that this was a severe allergic reaction. Tyler's airway was closing, and from the sound of his labored breathing, they had minutes, not hours, to intervene. "What happened?" Amanda asked, already guiding them toward the nearest examination room while mentally calculating treatment. Protocols. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, switching on lights and pulling equipment closer to the bed. "We were at the community center for the winter festival," the man gasped, his own breathing labored from panic and exertion. Tyler was eating some cookies, and then he just started coughing. His face got puffy, and he said he couldn't swallow. "I've never seen anything like this happen to him before." Amanda helped transfer Tyler to the examination bed, her trained eyes taking in every detail of his condition. The child's face was grotesquely swollen, his eyes barely visible through the inflammation. His breathing had become increasingly strained, with a high-pitched wheeze that indicated his airway was dangerously compromised. His skin had taken on a mottled appearance, and Amanda could see hives spreading across his arms and neck. "Tyler, honey, can you hear me?" Amanda spoke directly to the boy, while her hands checked his pulse and breathing. His heart rate was elevated, and his oxygen saturation levels were dropping rapidly. This was anaphylactic shock, a medical emergency that could be fatal within minutes if not treated immediately. The boy managed a weak nod, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. Amanda could see the panic in his gaze, the terror of a child who couldn't understand why his body was betraying him. She had seen this look before, and it never failed to strengthen her resolve to do whatever was necessary to help. "You're going to be okay, sweetheart," Amanda said, her voice calm and reassuring despite the urgency of the situation. "I'm going to take really good care of you." Linda Walsh appeared in the doorway, her face reflecting the gravity of the situation. "Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." She had been working at Riverside General long enough to recognize a medical emergency when she saw one, but she also knew the protocols that governed how such emergencies were handled. "I need the father to step out and complete the admission." "In paperwork," Linda said, her voice gentle but firm. "We'll need insurance information and authorization before we can begin treatment." The man looked between Linda and his son, his face a portrait of confusion and desperation. "I don't understand. Can't you help him first? Look at him, please. He can barely breathe." Amanda's jaw tightened as she continued monitoring Tyler's vital signs. The child's oxygen levels were continuing to drop, and the swelling in his throat was getting worse. She needed to administer epinephrine immediately, followed by steroids and antihistamines to counteract the allergic reaction. Every second of delay increased the risk of respiratory failure. "Sir, I understand your concern," Linda continued, "but hospital policy requires insurance verification and pre-authorization for all treatments. If you could just step out for a moment to provide that information, we can get the approval process started." "How long will that take?" the man asked, his voice rising with panic as he watched his son struggle for each breath. "It depends on your insurance company," Linda replied honestly. "Sometimes it's quick, but it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to several hours, especially in the evening when fewer representatives are available." Amanda felt her stomach drop. Tyler didn't have 30 minutes, let alone several hours. The child needed immediate intervention, or he would go into full respiratory arrest. She had seen anaphylactic shock before, and she knew exactly how this would end if they waited for insurance approval. "Dad, what's your name?" Amanda asked, turning to the man while keeping one hand on Tyler's wrist to monitor his pulse. "Michael Henderson," he replied quickly, "and this is my son Tyler. Please, you have to help him." Amanda looked at Michael Henderson and saw her own fears reflected in his eyes. This was a father watching his child suffer, desperate for help that was being delayed by administrative procedures. She thought about Sophia, about how she would feel if her daughter were in Tyler's position and bureaucracy stood between her child and life-saving treatment. "Mr. Henderson, I need you to know that Tyler is having a severe allergic reaction called anaphylactic shock," Amanda explained, her voice steady and professional. "His airway is swelling shut, and without immediate treatment, this could become life-threatening very quickly." Michael's face went white. "Then treat him. Please, I'll pay whatever it costs. I'll figure out the insurance later." Linda shifted uncomfortably in the doorway. "Mr. Henderson, I understand your desperation, but the hospital has very strict policies about this. We've had situations in the past where treatments were provided without proper authorization, and the insurance companies refused to pay. The hospital ended up absorbing significant costs." "I don't care about the money," Michael shouted, his composure finally cracking. "This is my son's life." Amanda felt the familiar tension building in her chest, the same conflict she had navigated countless times during her career. She looked down at Tyler, whose breathing had become even more labored. The child's lips were now purple, and she could see the panic in his swollen eyes as he struggled to get air into his lungs. Dr. Patricia Kane appeared in the doorway, having heard the commotion from her office down the hall. Her presence immediately changed the dynamic in the room, bringing with it the weight of institutional authority and policy enforcement. "What's the situation here?" "Doctor," Kane asked, her voice crisp and professional as she surveyed the scene. "6-year-old male with anaphylactic shock," Amanda reported quickly. "Severe airway compromise, dropping oxygen saturation, needs immediate epinephrine and corticosteroids." Dr. Kane nodded, her clinical assessment aligning with Amanda's, but then her gaze shifted to Linda, and Amanda could see the unspoken communication between them. "Has insurance authorization been obtained?" Dr. Kane asked. "We're working on it," Linda replied. "Mr. Henderson is gathering the necessary information." "I have insurance," Michael interjected desperately. "I work for the county road department. I have coverage through the state employee plan. Can't you just treat him and sort out the paperwork later?" Dr. Kane's expression remained neutral, but Amanda could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. The hospital had been burned before by insurance companies, that found reasons to deny coverage after the fact, leaving Riverside General to absorb the costs of expensive emergency treatments. "Mr. Henderson, I understand your concern," Dr. Kane said carefully, "but state employee insurance plans often require pre-authorization for emergency treatments, especially expensive ones like what your son needs. The hospital has to protect itself financially so we can continue serving the community." Amanda watched Tyler's oxygen monitor as the numbers continued to drop. 91%, 89%, 86%. Normal oxygen saturation should be above 95%. The child was deteriorating rapidly, and they were wasting precious time on administrative procedures. "Dr. Kane," Amanda said quietly, "Tyler's oxygen saturation is dropping rapidly. He needs intervention now." "I understand that, Amanda, but we have to follow protocols. Mr. Henderson, if you could please go with Linda to complete the necessary paperwork, we can begin the authorization process immediately." Michael looked between his son and the door, torn between the need to advocate for Tyler and the apparent requirement to complete bureaucratic tasks. "How long will this really take?" "It's hard to say," Dr. Kane replied honestly. "State employee. Plans can be complicated. It could be 20 minutes, it could be 2 hours. Amanda felt something break inside her chest. Tyler didn't have 20 minutes, let alone 2 hours. She could see the child's condition deteriorating before her eyes, and every instinct she possessed screamed that immediate action was required. "Dr. Kane," Amanda said, her voice steady but urgent, "this child is going to die if we don't treat him immediately. Anaphylactic shock doesn't wait for insurance approval." "Amanda, I appreciate your concern, but we cannot expose the hospital to financial liability based on emotional decisions. We have to trust that the insurance process will work as designed." Amanda looked down at Tyler, whose eyes were beginning to roll back as his oxygen levels continued to plummet. She thought about Sophia, about all the children she had cared for over the years, about the oath she had taken to protect and heal. She thought about the conversation she had had with Carol about setting boundaries, about protecting herself from the emotional toll of caring too deeply. But as she watched Tyler struggle for breath, Amanda realized that some boundaries were meant to be crossed. Some rules were meant to be broken when a child's life hung in the balance. She had become a nurse to help people, not to enforce policies that prioritized money over human life. Without another word, Amanda reached for the emergency medication cart and withdrew a preloaded epinephrine injector. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she prepared to administer the life-saving treatment. "Amanda, stop!" Dr. Kane said sharply. "You do not have authorization to proceed." Amanda looked up at her supervisor, her eyes filled with a determination that surprised even herself. "This child is dying, Dr. Kane. I'm not going to stand here and watch that happen while we wait for an insurance company to decide whether his life is worth saving. If you administer that medication without proper authorization, you will be in violation of hospital policy and state regulations. I will have no choice but to terminate your employment immediately." The room fell silent except for Tyler's increasingly desperate attempts to breathe. Amanda felt the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. She thought about her job, about the mortgage on her small apartment, about Sophia's upcoming birthday and the bicycle she had been saving to buy. But then she looked at Tyler's face, swollen and blue, and she thought about Michael Henderson's desperate plea for help. She thought about all the times she had told Sophia that doing the right thing was more important than doing the easy thing. Amanda uncapped the epinephrine injector and looked directly at Dr. Kane. "Then I guess you'll have to fire me." Before anyone could stop her, Amanda administered the epinephrine injection into Tyler's thigh. The effect was almost immediate. Within seconds, the child's breathing began to ease, and color started returning to his lips. "Get me methylprednisolone and diphenhydramine," Amanda called out, continuing with the treatment protocol despite the stunned silence that had fallen over the room. "And I need a nebulizer with albuterol." Tyler's oxygen saturation began to climb steadily as the medications took effect. 90%, 93%, 96%. The swelling in his face began to subside, and his breathing became less labored with each passing minute. Michael Henderson stood frozen by his son's bedside, tears streaming down his face as he watched Tyler's condition improve. "Thank you," he whispered to Amanda. "Thank you for saving my son." Dr. Kane remained silent for several long minutes, watching as Amanda continued to monitor Tyler's vital signs and administer the additional medications needed to prevent a secondary allergic reaction. The child was clearly out of immediate danger, but the professional consequences of Amanda's actions were just beginning. "Amanda," Dr. Kane said finally, her voice heavy with regret, "you know I have to terminate your employment immediately. You violated direct orders and hospital policy." Amanda nodded, her hands still steady as she adjusted Tyler's oxygen levels. "I know. Clear out your locker tonight. Your final paycheck will be processed within the week," Amanda continued. Her work, ensuring that Tyler was stable and comfortable before she would even consider leaving his side. She had saved a child's life, but she had also destroyed her own career in the process. As she watched Tyler's oxygen levels return to normal, she wondered if she had made the right choice. The answer would come sooner than she expected, in a way that would challenge everything she thought she knew about the consequences of moral courage. The administrative office of Riverside General felt smaller and more suffocating than Amanda had ever noticed before. The beige walls seemed to close in around her as she sat across from Dr. Kane's mahogany desk, listening to the clinical recitation of her professional death sentence. Outside the window, snow continued to fall in the Colorado darkness, each flake catching the light from the parking lot like tiny stars plummeting to earth. "Your termination is effective immediately," Dr. Kane repeated, her voice maintaining the same professional tone she used for difficult diagnoses. "You'll need to surrender your hospital ID badge, return any borrowed equipment, and clear out your personal belongings from your locker tonight." Amanda nodded mechanically, her fingers turning her badge over and over in her hands. The plastic card felt heavier than it should have, weighted with 4 years of memories, late-night shifts, small victories, and heartbreaking losses. Behind this simple piece of identification lay countless hours of caring for children who couldn't advocate for themselves, comforting parents who felt helpless in the face of their children's suffering, and navigating the complex intersection of healthcare and human dignity. "I want you to know that this decision wasn't made lightly," Dr. Kane continued, though her expression remained carefully neutral. "Your clinical skills and dedication to patient care have never been in question, but institutional policies exist for important reasons, and when staff members decide they can ignore those policies based on personal judgment, it undermines the entire system we've built here." Amanda understood the reasoning, even if she couldn't accept it. Riverside General operated on thin margins, serving a rural community where many patients struggled with medical debt and limited insurance coverage. The hospital had to maintain strict financial controls to remain viable, and that meant enforcing policies that sometimes seemed harsh but were designed to protect the institution's long-term ability to serve the community. "Tyler Henderson is stable and will make a full recovery," Dr. Kane added, perhaps recognizing that Amanda's primary concern remained focused on her patient rather than her own employment situation. His father was eventually able to obtain insurance authorization, and the treatment costs will be covered. The irony wasn't lost on Amanda. Tyler's insurance would have covered the treatment that had cost her job, but the authorization process would have taken too long to save his life. The system had worked exactly as designed, prioritizing financial protection over immediate medical intervention, and a child had nearly died because of it. "What happens now with Tyler's care?" Amanda asked, her professional instincts still, engaged despite her personal crisis. "Dr. Martinez will take over his case. Tyler will be monitored overnight and should be ready for discharge tomorrow morning, assuming no complications arise." Amanda felt a pang of loss at the thought of not being able to follow up on Tyler's recovery. One of the most rewarding aspects of pediatric nursing was watching children heal and return to their normal lives, seeing the fear leave their eyes. As their bodies recovered and their families' relief replaced terror with gratitude. "I need to ask you to avoid any contact with the Henderson family going forward," Dr. Kane continued. "Given the circumstances of your termination, it's important that there be no appearance of impropriety or attempts to circumvent hospital authority." This instruction stung more than Amanda had expected. Michael Henderson's gratitude had been genuine and heartfelt, a reminder of why she had chosen nursing in the first place. Being told to avoid contact with a family she had helped felt like being denied the emotional reward that made the difficult aspects of healthcare work bearable. "I understand," Amanda replied, though her voice carried the weight of everything. She was losing beyond just her job. The administrative process of termination moved with bureaucratic efficiency. Amanda surrendered her badge, returned her hospital-issued stethoscope and tablet, and signed documents acknowledging the circumstances of her dismissal. Each step felt like a small death, the systematic dismantling of a professional identity she had worked years to build. Carol Peters was waiting by Amanda's locker when she arrived to collect her personal belongings. Her friend's face showed a mixture of sympathy, anger, and disbelief that mirrored Amanda's own emotional confusion. "This is absolutely insane," Carol said without preamble. "You saved a child's life and they're punishing you for it. How is that even legal?" Amanda opened her locker and began removing the personal items that had accumulated over 4 years. A spare pair of comfortable shoes, a coffee mug Sophia had given her for Mother's Day, several photographs of her daughter, and a small collection of thank you cards from grateful families. Each item represented a piece of the life she was leaving behind. "It's legal because I violated hospital policy," Amanda replied, though the words felt strange in her mouth. "Dr. Kane warned me about the consequences, and I chose to ignore them." "But you were right," Carol protested. "That little boy would have died if you had followed their stupid policy. How can they fire someone for being right?" Amanda paused in her packing, considering the question. "Because being right isn't always the same as following the rules. And institutions like hospitals need rules to function, even when those rules sometimes produce outcomes that seem wrong." Carol shook her head vigorously. "Don't you dare start defending them. What you did tonight was heroic, and if they can't see that, then this place doesn't deserve you." The word heroic made Amanda uncomfortable. She hadn't been trying to be a hero. She had simply been trying to save a child's life. The fact that such basic human compassion was being characterized as heroic suggested something fundamentally broken about the system they worked within. "What are you going to do now?" Carol asked, her voice softer and more concerned. Amanda honestly didn't know. She had been working at Riverside General for so long that she had never seriously considered what she would do if she suddenly found herself unemployed. The nursing job market in their rural area was limited, and word of her termination would likely spread quickly through the tight-knit medical community. "I guess I'll start looking for another position," Amanda said, though the prospect felt overwhelming. "Maybe I'll have to consider moving to Denver or Colorado Springs, somewhere with more hospitals and opportunities." The thought of leaving Riverside filled Amanda with dread. This small mountain town had been Sophia's entire world, and Amanda couldn't imagine uprooting her daughter from everything familiar because of her own professional crisis. Sophia's school, her friends, their small but comfortable apartment, their routine, their community connections, all of it would be lost if Amanda couldn't find local employment. "You know that Dr. Kane will have to report this to the state nursing board," Carol said quietly. "A termination for violating medical protocols could affect your license." Amanda had been trying not to think about this possibility, but Carol was right. Her nursing license was her professional lifeline, and any disciplinary action could make it much harder to find future employment. The irony was devastating. Saving a child's life might end her career as a healthcare provider. As Amanda finished clearing out her locker, other staff members stopped by to express their support and disbelief at the situation. Linda Walsh apologized for her role in enforcing the hospital's policies, explaining that she had no choice but to follow procedures, even when they felt wrong. Several nurses offered to serve as references for future job applications, and Dr. Martinez, who would be taking over Tyler's care, quietly told Amanda that she had made the right choice. The support from her colleagues was gratifying, but it also highlighted the moral complexity of her situation. Everyone seemed to agree that she had done the right thing for Tyler, but the institutional consequences remained unchanged. Good intentions and moral courage didn't override employment contracts and hospital policies. Walking to her car in the snowy parking lot, Amanda felt the full weight of her new reality settling over her. Tomorrow, she would have to wake up without a job, without a steady income, and without the professional identity that had defined her for years. She would have to explain to Sophia why Mommy wouldn't be going to work anymore, and she would have to figure out how to pay their bills while searching for new employment. The drive home through the quiet mountain roads gave Amanda time to process the evening's events. The snow-covered landscape looked peaceful and beautiful, but she found it difficult to appreciate the scenery while worrying about her family's future. She thought about Tyler Henderson, hopefully sleeping peacefully in his hospital bed with normal oxygen levels and no awareness of the professional cost of his recovery. Amanda's apartment building looked smaller and shabbier than usual as she pulled into the parking space outside. The two-bedroom unit on the second floor had been home for 3 years, long enough for her to paint the walls in Sophia's favorite colors and create a space that felt safe and welcoming despite its modest size. Mrs. Patterson answered Amanda's knock immediately, as if she had been waiting by the door. The elderly woman's face showed concern and curiosity, having noticed that Amanda was arriving home much earlier than usual from her evening shift. "How did it go tonight, dear?" Mrs. Patterson asked, unaware of the loaded nature of her innocent question. Amanda hesitated, not wanting to burden her neighbor with the full story, but needing to provide some explanation for the changes that would be coming to their routine. "There was an incident at the hospital," Amanda said carefully. "I'm going to be taking some time off while things get sorted out." Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted to one of worry and sympathy. "Oh my, I hope everything is all right. Sophia was such a good girl tonight. She finished her homework and went to bed right on time." Amanda felt grateful for the stability that Mrs. Patterson provided in Sophia's life, especially now when everything else felt uncertain. Their elderly neighbor had become like a grandmother to Sophia, providing after-school care and a loving presence that helped compensate for Amanda's demanding work schedule. "Thank you for taking such good care of her," Amanda said sincerely. "I'm not sure what our schedule will look like over the next few weeks, but I'll keep you informed." Walking into her quiet apartment, Amanda felt the familiar mixture of relief and loneliness that came with being a single parent. She loved coming home to Sophia, but she also carried the full weight of responsibility for their family's well-being. Tonight, that weight felt particularly heavy. Sophia's bedroom door was slightly ajar, and Amanda could see her daughter's sleeping form curled up under the colorful quilt they had picked out together at a local craft fair. At 8 years old, Sophia had her mother's dark hair and determined spirit, along with an innocence that Amanda worked hard to protect. Looking at her sleeping daughter, Amanda felt both fierce love and growing anxiety about their uncertain future. In the kitchen, Amanda made herself a cup of tea and sat at the small table where she and Sophia shared their meals and conversations. The apartment felt different somehow, as if her changed employment status had altered the very atmosphere of their home. She tried to imagine what she would tell Sophia in the morning, how she would explain that Mommy's work situation had changed without frightening her daughter or making her feel insecure. Amanda's phone buzzed with a text message from Carol. "Thinking about you. Tyler is doing great, asking for the nice nurse who helped him breathe. You're a hero, whether they recognize it or not." The message brought tears to Amanda's eyes, both from gratitude for her friend's support and from the knowledge that she would probably never see Tyler again. She had given up her career to save his life, but she wouldn't even have the satisfaction of watching him recover and return to being a normal, healthy child. As the night deepened and the snow continued to fall outside her windows, Amanda found herself questioning every aspect of the decision she had made. Had she been foolish to risk everything for one child? Should she have found a way to work within the system rather than defying it so dramatically? Would Sophia be better off with a mother who kept her job rather than one who followed her conscience? But then she thought about Tyler's blue lips and desperate breathing, about Michael Henderson's terror and pleading, about the moral code that had guided her into nursing in the first place. She couldn't imagine making a different choice, even knowing the consequences. Some things were more important than job security, even when the cost was devastating. Amanda finished her tea and checked on Sophia one more time before preparing for bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and difficult conversations, but tonight she had the quiet satisfaction of knowing that somewhere in Riverside General, a little boy was breathing easily because she had chosen courage over caution. She had no way of knowing that in exactly 3 hours her world would change again in ways she could never have imagined. Amanda's sleep had been restless and filled with anxiety dreams about job interviews and unpaid bills. When she finally gave up on rest and padded to the kitchen to make coffee at 5:30 in the morning, she felt as exhausted as if she had worked another double shift. The apartment was quiet, except for the familiar sounds of the old building settling and the distant hum of early morning traffic beginning to build on the main road through Riverside. Sophia wouldn't be awake for another hour, giving Amanda precious time to collect her thoughts and prepare for the conversation she dreaded having. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that Mommy lost her job for helping a sick child? How do you maintain a sense of security and normalcy when your entire world has been upended in a single evening? The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the small kitchen with the rich aroma that had become Amanda's morning ritual. She stood by the window overlooking the parking lot, watching the snow that had fallen overnight transform the ordinary landscape into something that looked clean and peaceful. The beauty of the scene felt at odds with the turmoil in her mind. Amanda's phone had been buzzing intermittently with text messages from colleagues who had heard about her termination. The nursing community in Riverside was small and tightly connected, and news traveled quickly through their informal network. Most of the messages expressed support and disbelief, with several offering to help with job references or connections at other facilities. One message from Linda Walsh had arrived just after midnight. "Amanda, I'm so sorry about what happened. Tonight, You did the right thing, and I hate that following policy meant I couldn't support you in the moment. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help." Amanda appreciated the sentiment, but she also understood that Linda had been in an impossible position. The receptionist had been following hospital protocols just as she was supposed to, and Amanda bore no resentment toward anyone who had simply been doing their jobs according to institutional requirements. As she sipped her coffee and watched the sun begin to rise over the snow-covered mountains, Amanda tried to formulate a plan for moving forward. She would need to update her resume, reach out to contacts at other hospitals in the region, and prepare for the possibility that her termination might make finding new employment more challenging than usual. The sound of engines approaching outside caught her attention, though she initially dismissed it as early morning commuters or delivery trucks. But the sound grew louder and more distinctive, the deep rumble of powerful, well-tuned motors that seemed out of place in their modest neighborhood. Amanda looked out the window and felt her breath catch in her throat. 8 luxury vehicles were pulling into the small parking lot outside her building, each one more expensive than anything she had ever seen outside of magazines or movies. A silver Bentley Continental, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom, a midnight blue Lamborghini, a white Mercedes Maybach, and 4 other vehicles that she couldn't immediately identify, but that clearly belonged in the same stratospheric price range. The cars arranged themselves in the parking lot with military precision, their drivers emerging simultaneously and taking positions that suggested professional coordination rather than coincidence. Amanda watched in bewilderment as men in expensive suits stepped out of the vehicles, their movements suggesting purpose and authority. "What in the world?" Amanda whispered to herself, wondering if she was somehow still asleep and dreaming. Nothing about this scene made sense in the context of her quiet mountain town apartment complex. The men gathered near the building's entrance, and Amanda could see them consulting what appeared to be a tablet or electronic device. One of them pointed toward her building, and several others nodded in agreement. Whatever they were looking for, they seemed to have found it. Amanda's phone rang, startling her so badly that she nearly dropped her coffee mug. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but given the surreal scene unfolding outside her window, she felt compelled to answer. "Hello," she said cautiously. "Is this Amanda Rodriguez?" The voice was male, professional, and unfamiliar. "Yes, this is Amanda. Who is this?" "Ms. Rodriguez, my name is James Mitchell, and I represent Marcus Blackwood. Mr. Blackwood would like to speak with you this morning, if you're available." Amanda's mind raced to place the name Marcus Blackwood, but it meant nothing to her. "I'm sorry, but I don't know who that is. What is this regarding?" "Mr. Blackwood is the father of Tyler Henderson, the child you treated last evening at Riverside General Medical Center." The words hit Amanda like a physical blow. Tyler Henderson's father had introduced himself as Michael Henderson, not Marcus Blackwood. But as she processed this information, she began to understand that the situation was far more complex than she had realized. "I don't understand," Amanda said slowly. "Tyler's father said his name was Michael Henderson." "Michael Henderson is Mr. Blackwood's personal security chief," James Mitchell explained patiently. "He was accompanying Tyler on a skiing trip when the allergic reaction occurred. Mr. Blackwood flew in from Denver as soon as he was notified of the incident." Amanda felt dizzy as the implications of this revelation began to sink in. Marcus Blackwood, even in rural Colorado, that name carried weight. Blackwood Industries was a technology and real estate empire with holdings throughout the western United States. Marcus Blackwood himself was frequently mentioned in business magazines and news articles as one of the region's most successful entrepreneurs. "Mr. Blackwood would like to meet with you this morning to discuss what happened last evening," James Mitchell continued. "He's currently waiting outside your residence." Amanda looked out the window again, seeing the luxury vehicles and suited men with new understanding. "He's here? Now?" "Yes, ma'am. Would you be willing to speak with him?" Amanda's mind struggled to process this turn of events. Less than 12 hours ago, she had been fired for treating a child without insurance authorization. Now she was being told that the child's father was one of the most powerful businessmen in Colorado, and he was waiting outside her apartment building with what appeared to be a small motorcade. Yes, I suppose I could speak with him," Amanda said, though she felt completely unprepared for whatever this conversation might entail. "Excellent. Mr. Blackwood will be up to see you in just a moment." The line went dead, leaving Amanda staring at her phone in disbelief. She looked around her small apartment, suddenly conscious of how modest and ordinary everything appeared. The furniture she had bought second-hand, the decorations she had chosen for their child-friendly appeal rather than sophistication, the breakfast dishes still sitting in the sink from the previous morning. A soft knock at her door interrupted her panic about the apartment's appearance. Amanda took a deep breath, checked to make sure Sophia was still sleeping, and opened the door to find herself face to face with a man who radiated the kind of quiet authority that came from years of wielding significant power. Marcus Blackwood was tall and impeccably dressed, but what struck Amanda most was the intelligence and intensity in his eyes. He looked like someone accustomed to solving complex problems and making decisions that affected thousands of people. But beneath the polished exterior, she could see something else, the raw emotion of a father whose child had been in mortal danger. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said, extending his hand, "thank you for agreeing to see me. I'm Marcus Blackwood." "Please, come in," Amanda said, stepping aside to allow him into her small living room. "Though I have to admit, I'm not sure I understand what's happening here." Marcus Blackwood looked around the apartment with eyes that seemed to take in every detail, but his expression remained respectful and neutral. Amanda had the sense that he was someone who could read a great deal about people from their environments, but who was too well-mannered to make judgments about economic circumstances. "Ms. Rodriguez, I want to begin by thanking you for saving my son's life," he said, his voice carrying genuine emotion despite its controlled tone. "Tyler is my only child, and what you did last evening. There aren't adequate words to express my gratitude." Amanda felt tears welling up in her eyes, both from the father's obvious relief and from the reminder of what she had lost in the process of helping Tyler. "How is he doing? Is he fully recovered?" "He's perfect," Marcus replied, and Amanda could see the love and relief in his expression. "He woke up this morning asking about the nice nurse who helped him breathe. He wants to thank you personally." "I'm so glad he's okay," Amanda said sincerely. "That's all that matters." Marcus studied her face for a moment, as if trying to understand something about her character. "Ms. Rodriguez, Tyler's security chief, Michael Henderson, explained to me what happened after you treated my son. I understand that you lost your job because you chose to help Tyler without waiting for insurance authorization." Amanda nodded, not trusting her voice to remain steady if she tried to explain the previous evening's events. "I also understand that Tyler would have died if you had followed hospital protocol and waited for the authorization process to be completed." "The hospital has policies for good reasons," Amanda said quietly. "I knew the rules, and I chose to break them." Marcus Blackwood's expression showed something that might have been admiration. "You chose to save a child's life rather than protect your own employment. That's not a choice that many people would make." Amanda thought about Carol's comment that her actions had been heroic, and she still felt uncomfortable with that characterization. "Any parent would understand why I couldn't just stand there and watch a child suffer when I had the ability to help." "Actually, Ms. Rodriguez, I think you'd be surprised by how many people would have chosen differently. Self-preservation is a powerful instinct, and you sacrificed your livelihood for a child you had never met before." They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the weight of the previous evening's events. Amanda found herself wondering why Marcus Blackwood had come to see her personally, why he had brought what appeared to be a small security detail, and what he hoped to accomplish with this conversation. "Mr. Blackwood," Amanda said finally, "I appreciate you coming to thank me, but you didn't need to do that. Helping Tyler was the right thing to do, and I don't regret my choice." Marcus smiled, and Amanda could see where Tyler had inherited his expressive eyes. "Ms. Rodriguez, I didn't come here just to thank you, though that was certainly part of my purpose. I came here to discuss your future." Amanda felt confused by this statement. "My future? Tyler told me this morning that he wants to be a doctor. When he grows up, so he can help other kids the way you helped him. His experience last night, frightening as it was, taught him something important about compassion and courage. That conversation got me thinking about the healthcare system that failed him last night, and about people like you who are willing to put patients before policies." Amanda listened carefully, trying to understand where this conversation was heading. Marcus Blackwood's presence in her modest living room still felt surreal, but his words suggested that this meeting had a purpose beyond expressing gratitude. "I've been involved in healthcare philanthropy for several years," Marcus continued, "primarily through donations to children's hospitals and medical research foundations. But last night's experience made me realize that throwing money at existing institutions isn't enough when those institutions have fundamental flaws that prevent them from serving patients effectively." The morning light, streaming through Amanda's windows, illuminated the expensive fabric of Marcus's suit and the subtle details that marked him as someone accustomed to the finest things in life. Yet his demeanor remained approachable and genuine, without the condescension that Amanda might have expected from someone of his wealth and status. What happened to Tyler could happen to any child whose family encounters the wrong combination of medical emergency and bureaucratic inflexibility, Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of recent revelation. The system prioritizes financial protection over immediate patient care, and children suffer because of it. Amanda nodded, thinking about the countless times she had witnessed similar situations during her nursing career. It's a difficult balance. Hospitals have to maintain financial stability to continue operating, but those same financial pressures can create barriers to care. "Exactly," Marcus replied, "which is why I've been exploring the possibility of creating an alternative. A healthcare facility that could provide excellent medical care without the financial barriers that nearly cost my son his life." Amanda felt a flutter of interest despite her exhaustion and emotional turmoil. The idea of healthcare without financial barriers had been a dream of hers since nursing school, but she had learned to accept the limitations of working within existing systems. "That sounds wonderful in theory," Amanda said carefully, "but the practical challenges would be enormous. How would such a facility sustain itself financially? How would you handle the inevitable situation where demand exceeds resources?" Marcus smiled at her questions, apparently pleased by her practical approach to the concept. "Those are exactly the right questions to ask, and they're questions that require input from healthcare professionals who understand both the clinical and human sides of medical care." Amanda felt a growing sense of anticipation, though she tried to temper her expectations. Marcus Blackwood was clearly leading toward some kind of proposition, but she couldn't allow herself to hope for something that might be too good to be true. "Ms. Rodriguez, I want to offer you an opportunity to help me build that alternative healthcare facility. I'm prepared to fund the development of a pediatric medical center that would serve children regardless of their family's ability to pay, and I'd like you to lead the clinical operations." The words hung in the air between them, like a bridge between Amanda's current reality and a future she had never dared to imagine. She felt her heart racing as she tried to process the magnitude of what he was suggesting. "I don't understand," Amanda said slowly. "You want me to run a medical center. Mr. Blackwood, I'm a nurse, not a hospital administrator. I don't have the training or experience to manage an entire facility." "You have something more valuable than administrative training," Marcus replied. "You have the moral compass and clinical judgment that would ensure this facility serves its intended purpose. The administrative skills can be taught, but the character you demonstrated last night can't be." Amanda felt overwhelmed by the scope of what he was proposing. Running a medical facility would require skills she had never developed, responsibilities she had never shouldered, and decisions that would affect far more people than just individual patients. "This is incredibly generous," Amanda said, "but I have to be honest about my limitations. I've never managed anything larger than a shift of nurses. I don't know anything about healthcare finance, regulatory compliance, or facility management." "You would have support in all of those areas," Marcus assured her. "I'm not suggesting that you handle this alone. There would be a full administrative team, experienced consultants, and all the resources necessary to ensure success. What I need from you is the clinical leadership and the commitment to maintaining the facility's mission." Amanda thought about Sophia, still sleeping in the next room, unaware that her mother's life was being offered the chance to change dramatically. The security and purpose that such a position could provide would transform both of their lives, but it would also mean taking on responsibilities that felt almost impossibly large. "Where would this facility be located?" Amanda asked. "Practical concerns competing with growing excitement. Here in Riverside or somewhere nearby in the mountain region," Marcus replied. "One of the things that struck me about last night's events was how limited healthcare options are in rural areas like this. Children in small mountain towns deserve the same quality of medical care available in Denver or Colorado Springs. The idea of staying in Riverside, of being able to keep Sophia in familiar surroundings while pursuing this extraordinary opportunity, made the proposition even more appealing." Amanda had been dreading the possibility of having to move to find new employment, and the chance to build something meaningful in their home community felt like a gift beyond measure. "What kind of timeline are you thinking about?" Amanda asked, her mind already beginning to grapple with the practical aspects of such an undertaking. "I'd like to have architectural plans completed within 6 months and the facility operational within 2 years, Marcus said. "It's an aggressive schedule, but Tyler's experience reminded me that children can't wait for perfect timing when they need medical care." Amanda felt a mix of excitement and terror at the compressed timeline. 2 years to build and open a complete medical facility seemed impossibly ambitious, but she was beginning to understand that Marcus Blackwood was accustomed to achieving ambitious goals. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm honored that you would consider me for something like this, but I need to ask the obvious question: why me? There must be dozens of healthcare professionals with more experience and better qualifications for this kind of leadership role." Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. "Ms. Rodriguez, I've worked with many highly qualified people over the years, and I've learned that technical qualifications are only part of what makes someone effective in a leadership role. Last night, you made a decision that demonstrated integrity, courage, and an unwavering commitment to doing what's right for a patient. Those qualities can't be taught or developed through experience alone." Amanda felt tears building in her eyes as she listened to his words. After the devastation of losing her job, after the sleepless night of worrying about her family's future, This conversation felt like emerging from a dark tunnel into brilliant sunlight. "I would need time to think about this," Amanda said, though part of her wanted to accept immediately. "This would be a huge change for me and my daughter, and I want to make sure I'm making the right decision for both of us." "Of course," Marcus replied. "This is a major life decision, and you should take whatever time you need to consider it carefully. But I hope you'll also consider the impact you could have on children throughout this region who currently have limited access to quality health care." Amanda thought about Tyler, about all the children she had cared for during her career, about the families who had struggled with medical bills and insurance complications. The opportunity to create a place where those barriers didn't exist felt like a chance to address systemic problems she had witnessed but felt powerless to change. "If I were to accept this position," Amanda said carefully, "what would be my specific responsibilities? I want to make sure I understand exactly what would be expected of me." "You would serve as the Chief Nursing Officer and Director of Clinical Operations," Marcus explained. "You'd be responsible for developing clinical protocols, hiring and training medical staff, ensuring quality patient care, and maintaining the facility's mission of providing accessible health care to all children." The scope of responsibility was enormous, but Amanda found herself feeling energized rather than intimidated by the challenge. The chance to build something from the ground up, to create systems and protocols that prioritized patient care over financial considerations, appealed to every instinct that had drawn her to nursing in the first place. "You mentioned that this would be a pediatric facility," Amanda said. "Would it handle emergency cases like Tyler's, or would it focus on primary care and scheduled treatments?" "Both," Marcus replied. "I envision a comprehensive pediatric medical center that could handle everything from routine checkups to emergency interventions. The goal would be to provide complete healthcare services so that families wouldn't have to choose between local convenience and quality care." Amanda's nursing experience had taught her how much families valued having comprehensive services available locally. Parents of sick children faced enough stress without having to travel long distances for specialized care or worry about whether their local facility could handle their child's needs. A soft sound from Sophia's bedroom reminded Amanda that her daughter would be waking up soon, and she felt a wave of anxiety about how to explain the previous night's events and this morning's unexpected visitor. "Mr. Blackwood," Amanda said, "I have an 8-year-old daughter who will be getting up soon. Would it be possible for us to continue this conversation at another time? I need to talk with her about what happened last night before she hears about it from someone else." "Absolutely," Marcus replied, standing immediately. "I don't want to disrupt your family routine any more than I already have." He reached into his jacket and withdrew an elegant business card, which he handed to Amanda. "My direct contact information is on there. Please call me when you've had time to think about the opportunity, regardless of what you decide." Amanda looked at the card, noting the heavy paper stock and embossed lettering that spoke to attention to detail and quality. "Thank you for thinking of me for this. Even if I ultimately decide it's not the right fit, I'm grateful that you would consider me for something so important." "Ms. Rodriguez," Marcus said, his voice carrying conviction, "what you did last night proves that you're exactly the kind of person who should be making decisions about children's health care. I hope you'll give serious consideration to accepting this opportunity." As Marcus moved toward the door, Amanda felt compelled to ask, "One more question. Mr. Blackwood, can I ask why this is so important to you? I mean, beyond Tyler's experience last night, you could fund existing hospitals or support other healthcare initiatives. Why create something entirely new?" Marcus paused, his hand on the doorknob, and Amanda could see him considering how much to share about his personal motivations. "Ms. Rodriguez, Tyler is adopted. His birth mother was a teenager who couldn't afford prenatal care, and Tyler was born with several health complications that required immediate intervention. She chose to place him for adoption because she wanted him to have opportunities she couldn't provide, including access to quality health care. Amanda felt the emotional weight of this revelation, understanding how deeply personal this issue was for Marcus Blackwood. Tyler's early medical needs taught me how critical it is for children to have access to care without financial barriers. Marcus continued, his birth mother's courage in placing him for adoption gave me the greatest gift of my life, and I want to honor that gift by ensuring that other children have the healthcare opportunities that Tyler has been fortunate to receive. The sincerity and emotion in Marcus's voice convinced Amanda that this wasn't just a wealthy man's philanthropic project, but a deeply personal mission rooted in love for his son and gratitude for the woman who had made Tyler's adoption possible. "Thank you for sharing that with me," Amanda said softly. "It helps me understand why this matters so much to you." After Marcus left, Amanda stood in her quiet living room, trying to process everything that had just happened. Less than 24 hours ago, her biggest concern had been affording Sophia's birthday bicycle. Now she was being offered the opportunity to lead a healthcare facility that could transform medical care for children throughout the mountain region. The sound of Sophia stirring in her bedroom reminded Amanda that she still faced the immediate challenge of explaining the previous night's events and this morning's unexpected visitor. Her daughter was perceptive and would certainly notice any changes in their routine or Amanda's emotional state. Amanda made fresh coffee and prepared Sophia's favorite breakfast, hoping that maintaining normal routines would help provide stability while she shared the complicated news about her job situation. She had always tried to be honest with Sophia about their circumstances while still maintaining her daughter's sense of security and optimism about the future. Sophia emerged from her bedroom with tousled hair and sleepy eyes, wearing the pajamas, decorated with cartoon animals that Amanda had bought for her last Christmas. At 8 years old, she still maintained much of her childhood innocence, but she was also old enough to understand when something important was happening in their lives. "Morning, Mommy," Sophia said, climbing onto her usual chair at the kitchen table. "You're home early. Did you not have to work last night?" Amanda felt her heart clench at the innocent question, knowing that she would have to explain events that would be difficult for a child to understand. "Actually, sweetie, something important happened at work last night, and I need to tell you about it," Amanda said, sitting down across from her daughter with her own cup of coffee. Sophia's expression became more alert, sensing from her mother's tone that this was a serious conversation. "There was a little boy at the hospital who was very sick and needed help right away," Amanda began. "The hospital has rules about how doctors and nurses are supposed to help patients, but sometimes those rules don't work well when someone needs help very quickly." Sophia nodded, listening carefully to her mother's explanation. "I had to choose between following the hospital's rules and helping the little boy who was having trouble breathing," Amanda continued. "I chose to help the little boy, but that meant I didn't follow the rules." "Did the little boy get better?" Sophia asked, her concern focused on the patient rather than the policy implications. "Yes, he got much better, and he's going to be perfectly fine," Amanda assured her. "But because I didn't follow the hospital's rules, I can't work there anymore." Sophia's eyes widened as she processed this information. "You got fired for helping a sick kid?" Amanda nodded, appreciating her daughter's ability to identify the central irony of the situation. "That's stupid," Sophia declared with the moral clarity that children often brought to complex adult situations. "It's complicated, sweetheart," Amanda said. "The hospital has rules for important reasons, even if those rules sometimes seem unfair." Sophia considered this for a moment, then asked the question that Amanda had been dreading. What are we going to do now? Will we have to move? Amanda felt tears threatening as she saw the worry in her daughter's eyes. Sophia had already experienced enough instability in her young life, and Amanda hated adding to her concerns. "I don't know yet what we're going to do," Amanda said honestly. "But I want you to know that no matter what happens, we're going to be okay. We'll figure it out together." Sophia reached across the table and took her mother's hand, a gesture of comfort that seemed far too mature for an 8-year-old. "I'm proud of you for helping the sick boy," Sophia said seriously, "even if it got you in trouble." Amanda felt her heart swell with love and pride for her daughter's compassion and understanding. Sophia's support meant more to her than any professional recognition or institutional approval ever could. "Thank you, sweetheart," Amanda said, squeezing Sophia's hand. "That means everything to me." As they finished breakfast together, Amanda found herself thinking about Marcus Blackwood's offer and what it could mean for Sophia's future. The opportunity to build a healthcare facility dedicated to serving children without financial barriers felt like a chance to create the kind of world that Sophia deserved to grow up in. But accepting such a position would also mean taking on responsibilities that could require long hours and high stress, potentially affecting the time and attention Amanda could give to her own daughter. The irony of potentially becoming so focused on helping other children that she might neglect her own wasn't lost on her. Amanda decided to spend the day thinking carefully about the opportunity, weighing the potential benefits against the risks and challenges. She wanted to make a decision based on careful consideration rather than emotional reaction, even though her initial instinct was to accept Marcus's offer immediately. The phone rang as Amanda was cleaning up the breakfast dishes, and she was surprised to see Carol's name on the caller ID. "How are you holding up?" Carol asked without preamble. "It's been an interesting morning," Amanda replied, thinking about Marcus Blackwood's visit. "How's Tyler doing?" "He's perfect. Bright and cheerful, asking about you constantly. Dr. Martinez said he should be able to go home this afternoon." Amanda felt relief and satisfaction knowing that Tyler had recovered completely from his allergic reaction. Regardless of what happened with her own career, she had succeeded in saving a child's life, and that achievement couldn't be taken away from her. "That's wonderful news," Amanda said sincerely. "There's something else," Carol continued, her voice carrying a note of excitement. "Tyler's family has been asking about you. Apparently, his father wants to meet with you personally to express his gratitude." Amanda realized that Carol didn't know about Marcus Blackwood's true identity or about the morning's extraordinary conversation. "Actually," Amanda said carefully, "I've already spoken with Tyler's father." "Really? When?" "This morning. It turns out that Tyler's situation is more complicated than we realized last night." Amanda found herself uncertain about how much to share with Carol about Marcus Blackwood's identity and his offer. The opportunity felt too new and too significant to discuss casually, even with her closest friend. "What do you mean?" Carol asked, curiosity evident in her voice. "I'll explain everything later," Amanda said. "Right now, I need to focus on Sophia and figure out what comes next for us." After ending the call with Carol, Amanda spent the morning playing board games with Sophia and trying to maintain a sense of normalcy while her mind churned with thoughts about the future. Sophia seemed to sense that something significant was happening, but she didn't press for details beyond what Amanda had already shared. As the day progressed, Amanda found herself returning repeatedly to Marcus Blackwood's offer and what it would mean for both her professional future and her family's well-being. The opportunity to build something meaningful from the ground up, to create a healthcare facility that embodied her values and served children without financial barriers, felt like a chance to make the kind of difference she had always hoped. to make in healthcare, but the magnitude of the responsibility also intimidated her. Leading a medical facility would require skills and knowledge she didn't currently possess, decision-making authority she had never wielded, and the ability to balance complex competing interests while maintaining focus on patient care. Amanda knew that whatever decision she made would affect not just her own future, but Sophia's as well. The security and opportunities that came with accepting Marcus's offer would benefit her daughter, but the demands of such a position might also mean less time together and more stress for their family. As afternoon turned toward evening, Amanda realized that she needed more information before she could make an informed decision. She wanted to understand more about Marcus Blackwood's vision for the facility, the timeline for development, and the specific support that would be available to help her succeed in such a challenging role. Most importantly, she wanted to ensure that accepting this opportunity would truly serve the best interests of the children and families who would depend on the facility for their healthcare needs. Amanda picked up Marcus Blackwood's business card and studied the embossed contact information, knowing that her next conversation with him would likely determine the direction of her professional future and her family's life. 3 days later, Amanda found herself standing in the conference room of Blackwood Industries' Denver headquarters, surrounded by architectural drawings, financial projections, and medical facility planning documents that represented a level of detail and preparation she hadn't expected. The sleek glass building overlooked the Colorado landscape with commanding views of both the urban sprawl and the distant mountain peaks, creating an environment that felt both powerful and connected to the natural beauty that defined the region. Marcus Blackwood had assembled a team of specialists that included hospital architects, healthcare consultants, medical equipment suppliers, and regulatory experts. Each person around the polished conference table brought decades of experience in their respective fields, and Amanda felt both honored and intimidated to be included in such high-level planning discussions. "The site survey for the Riverside location is complete," announced Jennifer Walsh, a healthcare facility architect, whose portfolio included some of the most innovative medical centers in the western United States. "We've identified a 12-acre parcel on the south side of town that would provide excellent accessibility while maintaining the mountain views that are so important to the community's character." Amanda studied the aerial photographs and topographical maps spread across the table, trying to visualize how a state-of-the-art medical facility would integrate into Riverside's small-town landscape. The proposed location was close enough to the main highway to ensure easy access for emergency vehicles, but far enough from the town center to allow for future expansion without disrupting the historic downtown area. "The architectural plans incorporate natural lighting and mountain views into every patient care area," Jennifer continued, pointing to detailed drawings that showed how the building would be positioned to maximize both functionality and aesthetic appeal. "Research consistently shows that patients heal faster when they have access to natural light and views of nature, which is particularly important in pediatric care." Dr. Sarah Chen, a pediatric healthcare consultant who had helped design children's hospitals throughout the country, leaned forward to add her perspective. "The layout we're proposing would allow for seamless transitions between different levels of care, from routine checkups to emergency interventions. Amanda, this design would give you the flexibility to handle everything from Tyler's type of allergic emergency to complex surgical procedures." Amanda appreciated being included directly in the planning discussions, though she still felt overwhelmed by the scope and complexity of what they were proposing. "How would we handle situations that require specialized equipment or expertise that might not be available on site?" "Excellent question," Dr. Chen replied. "We're planning partnerships with Children's Hospital Colorado in Denver and other regional facilities to ensure that patients requiring highly specialized care can be transferred quickly and efficiently." The facility would also have helicopter access for critical cases. Marcus Blackwood had been quietly observing the technical discussions, but Amanda could see him taking careful note of how she engaged with the various specialists and what questions she asked. She sensed that he was evaluating not just her interest in the project, but her ability to think strategically about the complex challenges they would face. "Amanda," Marcus said, "I'd like you to share your thoughts about the clinical staffing model. Based on your experience at Riverside General, what kind of nursing staff structure would best serve the patient population we're hoping to reach?" Amanda felt the attention of the entire room focus on her, and she took a moment to gather her thoughts before responding. "One thing I've learned working in rural healthcare is that families often travel significant distances to reach medical facilities, which means they may arrive more anxious and stressed than patients who live nearby. I think our nursing staff needs to be trained not just in clinical skills, but in family support and communication." Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. "That's an excellent point. How would you structure the staffing to address those needs?" "I'd want to have dedicated family liaison nurses who could work with parents to explain procedures, coordinate care, and help families navigate any insurance or financial issues," Amanda said, warming to the topic as she drew on her years of experience. Children heal better when their families feel supported and informed. Jennifer Walsh made notes as Amanda spoke, clearly incorporating her suggestions into the facility planning process. "We could design dedicated family consultation areas that provide privacy for difficult conversations, while still maintaining visual connection to patient care areas." The level of attention being paid to Amanda's clinical insights gave her growing confidence in her ability to contribute meaningfully to this project. While she might lack experience in facility management and healthcare administration, her years of direct patient care had given her valuable perspectives on what actually mattered to children and families facing medical challenges. "What about the financial model?" Amanda asked, addressing what she knew was a critical concern. "How do we ensure that providing care, regardless of ability to pay, doesn't compromise the facility's long-term sustainability?" Marcus smiled at her question, apparently pleased that she was thinking about practical sustainability rather than just idealistic goals. "We've established an endowment that will cover operational costs for the first 5 years, giving us time to develop sustainable revenue streams through a combination of insurance payments, grants, and ongoing philanthropic support." David Martinez, the healthcare finance consultant, opened a thick folder of financial projections. "The model we're proposing combines traditional fee-for-service revenue with innovative funding mechanisms that would allow us to provide free or reduced cost care without compromising quality or financial stability." Amanda studied the financial documents, trying to understand the complex calculations that would determine whether this ambitious vision could become a lasting reality. What happens if the demand for free care exceeds what the endowment can support? "That's where the broader healthcare community comes in," Marcus explained. "We're already in discussions with other healthcare organizations and foundations about creating a regional network of support for underserved pediatric populations. The goal is to make this facility a model that could be replicated in other rural areas." The scope of Marcus's vision extended far beyond just solving the immediate healthcare needs of the Riverside area. Amanda began to understand that he was thinking about creating a new model for rural pediatric care that could transform how children in underserved areas accessed medical services throughout the Mountain West. Dr. Patricia Romano, a pediatric emergency medicine specialist who had flown in from Children's Hospital, Colorado, leaned forward to address Amanda directly. I've reviewed the clinical protocols that Marcus asked us to develop, and I have to say that having someone with your nursing background leading this facility could really make a difference in how emergency cases are handled. Amanda felt both pride and pressure at Dr. Romano's words. What makes you say that? Nurses often have a different perspective on patient care than physicians do, Dr. Romano explained. You're trained to see the whole patient and family, not just the medical condition. That holistic approach is particularly important in emergency situations where families are scared and children are traumatized by their medical crisis. The conversation continued for several hours, covering everything from medical equipment, specifications to staffing ratios to community outreach programs. Amanda found herself increasingly engaged and excited by the comprehensive nature of the planning, while also feeling daunted by the complexity of bringing such an ambitious project to fruition. As the formal meeting concluded, Marcus asked Amanda to stay behind for a private conversation. The other consultants gathered their materials and filed out, leaving them alone in the conference room with its panoramic views of the Colorado landscape. "What are your honest thoughts about what you've heard today?" Marcus asked, settling back in his chair and giving Amanda his full attention. Amanda took a moment to organize her thoughts before responding. "I'm incredibly impressed by the level of planning and expertise you've assembled. This could really transform healthcare for children throughout the region." "But," Marcus prompted, clearly sensing that Amanda had reservations despite her positive words, "but I'm still not convinced that I'm the right person to lead such a complex operation," Amanda said honestly. "Everyone in that room has decades of experience in healthcare management and facility operations. I've never managed anything larger than a nursing shift." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Those are legitimate concerns, and I appreciate your honesty about them. But I want you to consider something. Every person in that room today has the technical expertise to build and operate a medical facility. What they don't have is your understanding of what it means to choose patient care over institutional policy." Amanda felt the weight of his words, remembering the moment 3 nights earlier when she had decided to treat Tyler despite the potential consequences to her own career. "The night you saved Tyler's life, you demonstrated something that can't be taught in business school or medical school," Marcus continued. "You showed that you have the moral courage to make difficult decisions when children's lives are at stake. That's the kind of leadership this facility needs." "But what if I make mistakes?" Amanda asked. "What if my lack of administrative experience leads to problems that could have been avoided by someone with more management background?" "You'll have support in all the areas where you lack experience," Marcus assured her. "But you'll be making the decisions that really matter, the ones that determine whether this facility serves its mission or just becomes another healthcare business." Amanda walked to the conference room windows and looked out at the mountain landscape that had been her home for most of her adult life. The peaks in the distance were the same ones she could see from her apartment in Riverside, but from this vantage point they looked different, more expansive and full of possibility. "Can I ask you something personal?" Amanda said, turning back to face Marcus. "Of course. Why is this so important to you that you're willing to invest this much time and money in someone you barely know?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and Amanda could see him weighing how much of his personal motivation to share. "Tyler's adoption was finalized when he was 2 years old," Marcus said finally. "Before that, he spent his first 2 years in foster care because his birth mother couldn't afford the medical care he needed for his early health complications. She wanted to keep him, but she couldn't provide what he needed." Amanda felt the emotion behind Marcus's carefully controlled words. "I've had 2 years to give Tyler every advantage that money can buy," Marcus continued. "The best medical care, the best schools, every opportunity I can provide. But I've never forgotten that there are thousands of children whose parents love them just as much as I love Tyler, but who can't access the care their children need. The personal pain in Marcus's voice helped Amanda understand why this project mattered so deeply to him. This wasn't just philanthropy or business investment. It was a father's attempt to honor the sacrifice made by his son's birth mother and to ensure that other children didn't suffer because of their family's financial circumstances. Building this facility is my way of trying to level the playing field for children whose parents face the same impossible choices that Tyler's birth mother faced, Marcus said. And I need someone leading it who understands that mission at a personal level. Amanda felt tears welling up in her eyes as she thought about Sophia and all the time she had worried about being able to provide everything her daughter needed. She understood exactly the kind of impossible choices that Marcus was describing, and she realized that her own experiences as a single mother might actually be an asset in leading a facility dedicated to serving families facing similar challenges. If I were to accept this position, Amanda said carefully, what would the timeline look like? When would you need me to start? And how would the transition work? We'd want you to begin immediately as the clinical director of development, Marcus replied. You'd work with the consulting team to finalize the facility design, develop clinical protocols, and begin recruiting medical staff. The construction timeline is 18 months, which would give you time to learn the administrative aspects while staying involved in every decision about how the facility operates. The 18-month timeline felt both exciting and terrifying. It would mean leaving behind the familiar world of bedside nursing and stepping into a leadership role that would require skills she was still developing. But it would also mean the chance to build something from the ground up, to create the kind of healthcare environment she had always dreamed of working in. What about my daughter? Amanda asked. This sounds like it could require significant travel and long hours, especially during the development phase. We'd work with you to ensure that your family obligations are respected, Marcus assured her. Sophia's well-being is important to the success of this project because a leader who's stressed about their own family can't effectively serve other families. The consideration Marcus was showing for Sophia's needs helped alleviate one of Amanda's major concerns about accepting such a demanding position. She had seen too many healthcare leaders who sacrificed their personal relationships for professional advancement, and she was determined not to follow that path. I need to ask about compensation, Amanda said, feeling awkward about discussing money, but knowing it was a practical necessity. I have financial obligations, and I need to ensure that I can support my family while taking on this role. Marcus reached into his briefcase and withdrew a formal offer letter, which he handed to Amanda. I think you'll find that the compensation package reflects both the importance of this position and our commitment to ensuring that you can focus on the work without financial stress. Amanda opened the envelope and felt her breath catch as she read the salary figure. It was nearly 3 times what she had been earning at Riverside General, enough to provide Sophia with opportunities Amanda had only dreamed of being able to afford. This is very generous, Amanda said, though the words felt inadequate to express her surprise and gratitude. It's appropriate for the level of responsibility and the impact you'll have on children's lives throughout the region, Marcus replied. We want to ensure that choosing to work in rural healthcare doesn't mean sacrificing financial security. Amanda folded the offer letter and placed it carefully in her purse, knowing that she would need time to fully process everything she had learned during this meeting. The opportunity exceeded anything she had imagined possible when she had first entered nursing, but it also represented a level of professional risk and personal change that would affect every aspect of her life. How long do I have to make a decision? Amanda asked. "Take whatever time you need," Marcus said, "but I hope you'll consider how many children in this region are currently underserved by the existing healthcare system, and how much difference this facility could make in their lives." As Amanda prepared to leave the Denver headquarters, she felt both exhilarated and overwhelmed by the day's revelations. The level of planning and investment that Marcus had committed to this project demonstrated that it was far more than a wealthy man's charitable whim. This was a serious attempt to address systemic problems in rural healthcare, and she was being offered the chance to lead that effort. The drive back to Riverside gave Amanda time to think about everything she had learned, and to begin processing the magnitude of the decision she faced. The mountain landscape that had always felt like home took on new significance as she considered the possibility of transforming healthcare access for children throughout the region. When she arrived at her apartment that evening, Sophia was waiting, with Mrs. Patterson eager to hear about her mother's day in Denver. Amanda realized that whatever decision she made would affect not just her own future, but Sophia's as well, and she wanted to make sure her daughter felt included in the process of considering this life-changing opportunity. "How was your big meeting, Mommy?" Sophia asked as soon as Amanda walked through the door. "It was very interesting, sweetheart," Amanda replied, sitting down to give Sophia her full attention. "The people I met with today are planning to build a new hospital for children, and they asked if I might want to help them." Sophia's eyes widened with interest. "A hospital just for kids?" "That's right. A place where children could get the medical care they need without their families having to worry about paying for it." "Like what you did for that little boy?" Sophia asked, immediately making the connection to the events that had led to Amanda's termination from Riverside General. "Exactly like that," Amanda confirmed, feeling proud of her daughter's understanding of the moral principles involved. "That sounds really important," Sophia said seriously. "Would you be a nurse there?" "I would be in charge of all the nurses and doctors," Amanda explained. "It would be a much bigger job than what I did before, with more responsibility for making sure everything works well for the children and families who come there." Sophia considered this information carefully. "Would we have to move?" "No. We could stay right here in Riverside. The new hospital would be built here in town." This news clearly pleased Sophia, who had been worried about having to leave her friends and familiar surroundings. "I think you should do it," Sophia announced, with the decisive clarity that children often brought to complex adult decisions. "Sick. Kids need someone like you to take care of them." Amanda felt her heart swell with love and pride for her daughter's compassionate instincts. Sophia's support meant more to her than any professional endorsement or financial incentive could provide. As they prepared dinner together that evening, Amanda found herself thinking about the conversation with Marcus and his team, about the detailed plans they had shown her, and about the opportunity to create something meaningful that could serve children throughout the mountain region for generations to come. The offer letter remained in her purse, unopened since she had reviewed it in Denver, but Amanda could feel its presence like a bridge between her current life and a future full of possibilities she had never imagined. The decision ahead of her would determine not just her own professional path, but the kind of legacy she would leave for Sophia and for all the children who might benefit from the facility they were planning to build. That night, as Amanda tucked Sophia into bed, her daughter looked up at her with serious eyes and said, "Mommy, I'm proud of you for helping that little boy, even though it got you in trouble, and I think you should help build the new hospital so you can help lots more kids." Amanda kissed her daughter goodnight, knowing that Sophia's wisdom and support would be crucial factors in whatever decision she ultimately made about Marcus Blackwood's extraordinary offer. 18 months later, Amanda stood in the main lobby of the Rocky Mountain Children's Medical Center, watching the final touches being applied to the facility that had transformed from an ambitious dream into a breathtaking reality. The soaring glass atrium filled the space with natural light, while carefully positioned mountain views created an atmosphere of healing and hope that exceeded even the architectural renderings she had studied during those early planning meetings. The opening ceremony was scheduled for the following morning, but tonight belonged to quiet reflection and the profound satisfaction of seeing a vision fully realized. Children's artwork decorated the walls alongside state-of-the-art medical equipment, creating an environment that felt both technically advanced and warmly welcoming. Amanda had insisted on this balance from the beginning, knowing that healing happened best when patients and families felt comfortable and valued. Sophia, now 9 years old and considerably taller than she had been during those uncertain days, after Amanda's termination from Riverside General, ran through the pediatric emergency department with the confidence of someone who had watched this facility grow from empty land into a functioning medical center. She had become the unofficial mascot of the construction project, charming architects and contractors with her intelligent questions and enthusiastic support for her mother's work. "Mum, can I see the family rooms again?" Sophia called out, her voice echoing in the spacious corridor designed to accommodate both wheelchairs and the kind of chaos that often accompanied families with sick children. Amanda smiled, following her daughter toward the family consultation areas that had been designed based on her own experiences with frightened parents who needed privacy to process difficult medical information. Each room featured comfortable seating, natural lighting, and direct access to patient care areas, allowing families to maintain close contact with their children while having space for emotional conversations. The medical center represented far more than just another healthcare facility. During the construction process, it had become a symbol of what was possible when financial barriers were removed from pediatric care. Children from throughout the mountain region would now have access to comprehensive medical services, regardless of their family's economic circumstances, fulfilling the promise that Marcus had made during that first conversation in Amanda's modest apartment. Dr. Patricia Romano, who had relocated from Denver to serve as the facility's chief of emergency medicine, appeared in the hallway carrying a tablet loaded with final operational protocols. Over the past year, she'd become both a valued colleague and a trusted friend, helping Amanda navigate the complex transition from bedside nursing to healthcare administration. The emergency protocols are finalized and uploaded to all clinical systems, Patricia announced, her satisfaction evident in her voice. "We're ready to handle everything from routine allergic reactions to complex trauma cases." Amanda felt a surge of pride, knowing that Tyler Henderson's type of emergency would never again be delayed by insurance authorization requirements. The facility's policy was elegantly simple. Treat first, handle financial considerations later, with a robust support system to ensure that payment issues never interfered with immediate patient care. Marcus Blackwood emerged from the administrative wing, where he had been reviewing final operational reports with the management team. Despite his significant financial investment in the project, he had remained respectfully involved rather than domineering, trusting Amanda's clinical judgment while providing strategic guidance based on his business expertise. "The endowment is fully funded, and we have commitments for ongoing operational support from healthcare foundations throughout the region," Marcus reported, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who had successfully completed a complex and meaningful project. "This facility will be able to provide free or reduced cost care indefinitely." The financial sustainability of the medical center had been one of Amanda's greatest concerns during the development process. She had seen too many well-intentioned healthcare initiatives fail because they lacked sustainable funding models. Marcus's methodical approach to building long-term financial support had created a foundation that would allow the facility to serve families for generations. Tyler Henderson, now 7 years old and completely recovered from his allergic reaction, bounded through the lobby with the energy of a healthy child who had no memory of the medical crisis that had sparked this entire endeavor. He had become something of a celebrity among the construction crew and medical staff, representing the reason why everyone had worked so hard to create this facility. "Miss Amanda," Tyler called out, using the name he had insisted on since meeting her during one of his visits to the construction site. "Can I see the room where kids get better from breathing problems?" Amanda knelt down to Tyler's eye level, remembering the terrified child she had treated that winter evening at Riverside. "General, the transformation was remarkable, not just in Tyler's health and confidence, but in the realization of how many other children would benefit from the comprehensive care now available in their community." "Of course, Tyler," Amanda said, taking his hand as they walked toward the pediatric emergency department. "This is where children who have the same kind of problem you had will get help very quickly, without anyone having to worry about anything except making them feel better." The emergency department represented the heart of Amanda's vision for the facility. The treatment rooms were designed to be both technically sophisticated and emotionally comforting, with equipment that could handle the most complex pediatric emergencies while maintaining an atmosphere that reduced anxiety for both patients and families. Carol Peters, who had accepted Amanda's offer to join the nursing staff as Assistant Director of Clinical Operations, appeared with a clipboard full of staffing schedules and training protocols. The friendship that had sustained Amanda through the difficult period after her termination had evolved into a professional partnership that brought together their complementary skills and shared commitment to exceptional patient care. "The nursing orientation program is complete, and our staff is ready for tomorrow's opening," Carol announced. "Everyone understands that our primary mission is providing compassionate care regardless of financial circumstances." Amanda had spent considerable time developing the facility's nursing philosophy, drawing on her years of experience to create protocols that emphasize both clinical excellence and emotional support for families facing medical crises. Every nurse hired for the facility had been selected not just for technical competence, but for demonstrated commitment to treating patients with dignity and compassion. Dr. Sarah Chen, the pediatric consultant who had helped design the facility's clinical protocols, joined the group with final reports on staff credentialing and regulatory approvals. Her expertise had been invaluable in ensuring that the medical center met all state and federal requirements while maintaining the flexibility to provide innovative patient care. "All clinical staff have completed their certifications, and we've received final approval from the State Health Department," Sarah reported. "We're fully licensed and ready to begin accepting patients tomorrow morning." The regulatory approval process had been complex and sometimes frustrating, requiring extensive documentation and multiple inspections to ensure that the facility met all safety and quality standards. Amanda had learned to navigate bureaucratic requirements while never losing sight of the ultimate goal of serving children and families. As evening approached, the core team gathered in the main conference room to review final preparations for the opening ceremony. Representatives from throughout the mountain region would be attending, along with healthcare officials, community leaders, and families who had already benefited from the facility's outreach programs during the construction phase. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge what everyone in this room has accomplished," Marcus said, his voice carrying genuine emotion. 18 months ago, this was just an idea born from one nurse's courage to put a child's life ahead of institutional policy. Today, it's a fully operational medical center that will serve thousands of children for decades to come. Amanda felt tears welling up as she looked around the room at the team that had made this dream a reality. Each person had contributed expertise and dedication that exceeded anything she could have accomplished alone, yet she knew that her clinical background and commitment to patient advocacy had provided the foundation that made everything else possible. What strikes me most about this project, Amanda said, is how it proves that healthcare can be both excellent and accessible when we prioritize the right values. We've created something here that doesn't compromise quality for affordability or accessibility for sustainability. The medical center's innovative funding model had attracted attention from healthcare organizations throughout the country, with several foundations expressing interest in replicating the approach in other underserved regions. Amanda had been invited to speak at medical conferences about the facility's development, though she still felt more comfortable discussing patient care than healthcare policy. Sophia, who had been quietly coloring in a corner of the conference room, looked up from her artwork with a question that cut straight to the heart of the project's significance. "Mom, how many kids will get help here?" Amanda considered the question carefully, thinking about the population projections and service area analyses that had guided the facility's development. "Thousands of children, sweetheart," Amanda replied. "Children from all over the mountains who need medical care will be able to come here and get help, just like Tyler did." Sophia nodded seriously, then returned to her coloring with the satisfied expression of someone who understood that her mother's work made a meaningful difference in the world. As the team finalized preparations for the opening ceremony, Amanda found herself thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. The decision to treat Tyler Henderson without insurance authorization had cost her a job she valued, but it had also opened a door to opportunities she never could have imagined. The past 18 months had challenged her in ways that extended far beyond her nursing background. She had learned to manage budgets, navigate regulatory requirements, coordinate with contractors, and lead a team of healthcare professionals whose expertise often exceeded her own in specialized areas. The growth had been demanding but deeply rewarding, expanding her understanding of how healthcare systems functioned, while never losing sight of the human needs those systems were meant to serve. "Amanda," Marcus said as the meeting concluded, "I want you to know how proud I am of what you've built here. This facility embodies everything we hoped it would become when we first discussed this idea." Amanda felt profound gratitude for Marcus's trust in her abilities and his patience with her learning curve as she had grown into the role of healthcare administrator. His support had been unwavering, even during moments when she had doubted her own qualifications for such significant responsibilities. "I couldn't have done any of this without the team you helped me assemble," Amanda replied. "Honestly, this has been the most challenging and rewarding experience of my professional life." As the team dispersed to complete final preparations, Amanda walked through the facility one more time, checking details and savoring the quiet before tomorrow's official opening. Each department reflected careful attention to both medical functionality and emotional comfort, creating an environment where healing could happen holistically. The pediatric intensive care unit featured family sleeping areas adjacent to patient rooms, recognizing that parents needed to remain close to seriously ill children while maintaining their own physical and emotional well-being. The outpatient clinics were designed to feel more like comfortable offices than medical facilities, reducing anxiety for children who associated healthcare settings with fear and discomfort. Most importantly, the entire facility operated under protocols that prioritized immediate patient care over financial considerations. While the business office worked diligently to maximize insurance reimbursements and connect families with financial assistance programs, Clinical decisions were made based solely on medical necessity and patient well-being. Amanda's office, located near the nursing station, with windows overlooking the mountain landscape, had become a space where she could maintain connection to direct patient care while handling the administrative responsibilities that came with her leadership role. The walls displayed photographs of children who had already benefited from the facility's programs, along with thank you letters from grateful families. As she prepared to leave for the evening, Amanda reflected on the letter she had received, just that morning from Tyler's birth mother, who had learned about the medical center through a social worker. The young woman expressed gratitude that her decision to place Tyler for adoption had ultimately led to the creation of a facility that would help so many other children, creating meaning from what had been one of the most difficult decisions of her life. The following morning arrived with crisp mountain air and brilliant sunshine that seemed to bless the occasion. Families began gathering early, many bringing children who would be among the first patients to receive care at the new facility. Amanda watched from her office window as the parking lot filled with cars bearing license plates from throughout the mountain region, evidence of the widespread anticipation for improved pediatric healthcare access. The ribbon-cutting ceremony featured remarks from state health officials, local political leaders, and Marcus Blackwood, who spoke eloquently about the vision that had guided the project's development. But the moment that moved Amanda most deeply was when Tyler Henderson was invited to cut the ribbon, his small hands guided by Marcus as they officially opened the facility that his medical crisis had inspired. This place exists because one nurse chose to do what was right for a child, even when it meant personal sacrifice, Marcus told the assembled crowd. Today, we ensure that no other healthcare provider will ever have to make that choice, because this facility will always put children's needs first. Amanda felt the weight of that responsibility and the privilege of leading an organization dedicated to such clear moral principles. As families began touring the facility and scheduling appointments for their children, she knew that the real work was just beginning. The first patient to receive treatment was a 3-year-old girl with a broken arm, whose parents had driven 2 hours from a remote mountain community. The ease with which her family was welcomed, treated, and discharged without financial stress demonstrated that the facility's mission was being fulfilled exactly as intended. Sophia, wearing a special visitor badge that marked her honorary status as the facility's youngest advisor, helped hand out coloring books and stickers to children visiting for the first time. Her natural ability to connect with other children and help them feel comfortable in the medical environment suggested that she might be inheriting her mother's calling to healthcare service. As the opening day concluded and the last families departed, Amanda stood once again in the main lobby, this time surrounded by the satisfied exhaustion that comes from seeing important work successfully completed. The facility that had existed only in architectural drawings 18 months earlier was now a functioning reality that would serve children for generations to come. Marcus approached with a final observation that captured the significance of what they had accomplished together. "You know," he said, "Tyler asked me this morning if you were still his nurse. I told him that you're now everyone's nurse, watching over all the children who will be cared for here." Amanda smiled, thinking about how perfectly that description captured her evolution from individual patient advocate to healthcare leader, responsible for ensuring that compassionate care remained at the center of everything the facility accomplished. The Rocky Mountain Children's Medical Center had become more than just a healthcare facility. It was proof that moral courage could create lasting change, that individual acts of compassion could grow into institutions that served entire communities, and that the decision to choose principles over policies could ultimately benefit countless families who would never know the nurse who had risked everything to save one child's life on a winter evening in Riverside, Colorado. Up next, You've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.